Today's project is going to be this gorgeous accordion fold out that's recessed into the back of an altered book. I'm not going to show how to do the background or the focals because you can do that any way that you choose to do it, but what I'm going to show you is the technique for making this recessed fold out accordion for the back of your book. Okay, so what you're going to need is some pieces of cardboard, chipboard or mat board, something very thick and sturdy, and you're going to have 2 pieces of those, and then you're going to have cardstock. And the reason I use cardstock instead of paper that you've put together from your book, like pages you've glued together, or decorative paper, is because this is going to be the accordion part of the book that moves in and out, and it's going to get a lot of use and wear and tear going in and out. Paper from a book is fragile, as we know, and a lot of the folds where it's going to fold is going to eventually split and crack. So I recommend using a good heavy thick cardstock instead of paper from your book to assemble this. Pieces of cardboard or your pieces of mat board, whatever you're using, can be any size you want. So you could make it bigger, you could put it high, you could put it low, but the only prerequisite is it has to be square. So however your measurements are, you want to measure your 2 pieces of your base to be the same size and square. Now that you've determined the size of your 2 covers, we're going to go ahead and make the internal fold-out pages from your cardstock. So what you want to do is lay your cardstock over your piece of cardboard, and you want to give it a little bit of an edge, a little bit of a border inside, because that accordion piece is going to fold up and you want the cover to completely cover it. So whatever size you make your cover, you're going to want to make your internal pieces slightly smaller, and you're going to measure across that cardboard. You're going to measure the size, and then you're going to figure out exactly how much smaller you want to make it, and then you're going to multiply that by 2. So the reason I'm not giving you sizes is because it depends on what size you determine you're going to make for your book. Some books are small, some books are big. You can make a big one of these, a small one, any size you want. So if you made a book that's 2 inches, then your internal piece would be approximately 4 inches. And you're going to want to make your cover about 2 1/4 so that you have that extra room. And then you're going to just make it square. So you're going to make whatever size that is square. Okay, here are my 3 pieces cut of my cardstock and my 2 bases. So these pieces are 2 times the size of what I want to fit just nicely inside of this little cover. And I'm not giving you specific sizes because this is so versatile. You can make this any size that you want based on where you want to put it in your book, how big you want it to be in your book, the size of your book. So I'm not going by a specific size. All the prerequisites is this has to be a square and these have to be a square, and you just want this to end up fitting within this little cover. So hopefully that makes sense. And then the next step that you're going to want to do is to fold your cardstock. So you're going to go ahead and fold it over in half and try to get your folds as accurate as possible. In fact, I'm going to use a bone folder. Try to get them as accurate as possible because the nicer your folds are, the nicer your book is going to turn out. Okay? And then fold it into quarters. So take it and fold it over the other way. So what you end up with is it folded this way and this way. And go ahead and do that to all 3 pieces. Here are my 3 pieces folded into quarters. And then the next step is going to be fold it over into a triangle. And it doesn't matter which side you fold to because they're the same. So fold that over and just triangle it on one side. Do that to all 3. Okay, now for the simple assembly process. So you've got a square a square, and then a square divided and a square divided. So what you're going to want to do is take one that is the plain square, not folded, and you're going to glue it over a bottom square. An upper square gets glued to a bottom square, just like that. So put those pieces together, align them, and glue that square to that square. And you can use Mod Podge, you can use craft glue, you can use whatever you're comfortable using. I'm going to go ahead and do it with Mod Podge. Just kind of put a generous amount just in the square, and then place them square to square and line them up as close as possible, line to line, and then burnish it down really good. Okay, and now you're going to take your third piece and do the same thing, top square to bottom square. Okay, and this is what you end up with, is your three pieces together, and the triangle line goes across this way, and your squares are on top of your squares. Okay, this way. Now for folding, you're going to turn it over, and what you're going to do is these are going to go point to point and this down. Okay, so you fold those two lines in towards each other and that down, that square down, and you're going to do that at both ends. So point to point and fold down. So now this is what you should have. Okay, so you've got the two squares at the end folded in. Then you flip it over again, and these two are going to go the opposite direction. So these two are going to go inward. So what you're left with is your square, accordion. And it accordions and it folds up into a perfect square. Okay, so once again, outside edges, these two lines, vertical lines, go in towards each other, and squares in, and the back one, these are the middle ones, are going to go into the back side. You fold them to the back. So these get folded to the front, and these two get folded to the back, and you end up with your accordion. And then what you're going to want to do is open it up, and before you mount it to its covers, you're going to want to decorate it. So decide which side is going to be the front, which side is going to be the back, and you're going to decorate it. You can use pattern papers, book sheets, music sheets, things like that to decorate, but remember and keep in mind that the thicker the item it is that you're putting over it, the harder it is going to be to make these folds again and to fold it back up. So I personally recommend using a thinner type of item, such as tissue paper that's printed on, old patterns that you print on, napkins, papers that are really super thin, things like that. You could decorate it with those kind of things, paints, sprays, watercolor, anything like that, those kind of things. I wouldn't put texture paste in this. That's just my personal preference, and I wouldn't use papers that are too thick or anything 3D, because once you fold this up and put it into its covers and it accordions in, you want it to be as flat as possible, because we're going to recess that into the book. So decorate it and keep it as thin as possible. Now on the back side, the only parts that you need to decorate on the back side of it are the squares that have the line going this way. The big squares, the solid squares, you will not see. These squares you will. So what I like to do with that is to just put down a stencil and stencil an image in those spots, so that when it folds up, you see the edge a little bit, but it just looks decorative. So your main focal stuff will be on here, or whatever it is you want to put on here, and then the back side is going to be decorating this, this, and this. And you want to use something, I wouldn't do paper on the back side. I'd do something more like stenciling or sprays or something like that, or even paint. Okay, so go ahead and decorate, and then we'll move on to the next step. For your covers, your cover can be the same size. They can be the same size as each other, or you can make the top cover a little bit bigger. You can have exactly the same size, and here's what your accordion book is going to look like, just like this, which is kind of neat. If you go a little bit bigger on the top to kind of hide it, and then we recess this down into the book, you're going to have a bigger piece that it's going to be attached to, that it's going to hide the square that we're going to cut out into our book. So my suggestion is, if you recess it, make your top cover a little bit bigger than the bottom covers. Okay, you're going to want to find what book you want to put your accordion into, and the way this is done, you can do it two ways. You can put it on top of a page, assemble it, and then just put it on top of a page so it's going to be inside your book like this. Or what I'm going to show here is how to recess it down into your book, where only the cover is going to be on the top, and the rest of it is going to accordion out from the book. So decide which way you want to do it. And either way, this works either way, because making these, you can put them anywhere, on the front of the book, in the back of the book, on a page that you just decorated. You can make one of these and add it, or you can go the extra steps and do the recessing, and that's what we're going to do here. So to do that, you're going to want to take the bottom cardboard and the cardstock thickness, and you're going to want to put it down and measure how deep you're going to need for recessing it down into your book. And you want it to be about level, or just a tiny bit higher than this is. So you count out your pages, and for me, this was about 20 pages, and I'm putting it in the back of the book. I'm going to have it be the last thing in my book. And so I did about 20 pages. And then we'll go ahead and prep this book for recessing it in. And I'm going to use this as a template, decide where I want it to go. And I think I'm going to put mine about there. And you're going to want to draw around this. And my suggestion is go a little bit bigger. That way, with it decorated and with it pulling in and out of that box, it's not going to be rubbing on the sides of the cutout shadow box that it's going down into. So I kind of made my lines just a little bit out further, but that's going to give me an idea of where I'm going to want it in my book. And now I'm going to want to take and glue my pages together along these edges. So I'm going to put it on its side like this, and I'm going to put Mod Podge all around all three corners on the pages that I've separated out, and leave the book closed so they're nice and flat, and then let it dry really good. And then we'll come back and work on cutting out our box. Okay, my book edges are dry, and this is nice and stable. But I thought this through, and I'm actually going to put this in like this instead of like this. You can do your orientation any way you want, but I realized if I put it in this way, my fold out is going to come out like this, which is what I really want. So I'm going to go with a diamond shape instead. So I'm going to lay down my cardboard where I want that to be, and I'm going to just put it about right here, just eyeballing it, and I'm tipping my pencil outward so that it makes it a little further out. Like I had said before, I want my line and what I cut out to be a little bit farther out, because when I bury this whole thing in there, I want it to move in and out of that box freely. And I'm going to use my box cutter. I like these because you can snap off an end, have a brand new fresh blade, and I get a little bit more traction than just a regular X-Acto knife. That's just my preference. And I like using a metal ruler for this too. So I'm going to lay down my ruler, and I'm going to mark a little further out where I'm stopping and starting. And I'm going to go ahead and start cutting. So you basically just want to go along and start cutting out your box where your fold out is going to go. And then you start removing those loose pages from inside. And this is just if you want to recess this fun accordion book into your book, which I think will be kind of nifty. Okay, and then you start removing layers. This is kind of a fun process. Once you get down a little ways, you really don't need to have that ruler in there. You can just gently go in and cut. You don't want to cut the back of your book, you know, your heavy cardboard back. You're just wanting to remove those paper pages. So go ahead and clean out that back until you get all your pages out into to the bottom. And then the other nice thing about using a box cutter is the deeper that you get down into your little hole that you're cutting, you can pop out a click or two of this blade and have it right along that edge, and you're going to get a nice straight wall. You won't be cutting it you know, where your wall is really uneven. This ends up with a really nice straight wall because that blade, you can put that blade right along there and it's not interfering with this part. So I really like using the box cutter, and you can get them at your hardware store, at Walmart. You can get it get one at the dollar store. I actually may not even use that back cover. I think since I'm recessing it, I will just attach that bottom page inside. Let me see. Yeah, I think I'm going to do it that way. We shall see. It's kind of, that's how this goes, is as you're working, you change it up and get new ideas and see what works and see what doesn't. So now what you're going to do is you're going to take your Mod Podge and you're going to put some all around those inner edges. Okay, I got my Mod Podge in there really good all around those edges. Now what I'm going to do is put my plastic piece back in and close the book once again. Put something heavy on it and I'm going to let it dry. Okay, our book is dry and this is nice and tight and the edge is good, so that's ready to decorate that page. And this is how I went ahead and decorated my fold up. I used some vintage ads from an 1898 magazine with all kinds of really cool ads, water heaters, the Berkshire Sanatorium, dandruff, a Coke dandruff cure, this treatment for whooping cough and a little girl in the bed, and then a refrigerator ad for these old refrigerators. So, and then since it's going to be in the back of my book, I did the words "the end." And on the back side, because I don't want this too thick, on the back side I just used a stencil, and I stenciled those areas that are going to show, and I just used paint and a sponge. The stencil was an inexpensive stick-on stencil from the dollar store. And I did use paper, and I did go over my edges. Because these ads are so old, because they're so old, they're fragile enough and thin enough that they will fold. So what I'm going to have to do is refold my accordion back up carefully. Oh, that's just too cool. And then these are going to go back. These go backwards like this. So I'm just carefully seeing, even that old paper is starting to crack, but I'm okay with it cracking because it's just decoration. And then these fold in. Okay, so now my book is all folded, and when you open it, that's what it's going to look like. And then those are going to show on the sides. I really like that. So what I want to do now is I'm going to go ahead and decorate this page and put a focal down here, and then let's see how this fits. It's going to fold up like this. It's going to go in here. See, once you decorate it, it is a little bit thicker, so I'm not going to add that cardboard to the back. I'm going to just leave this cardboard back off. It usually goes on the back of the book. I'm going to glue this right in. If you add papers and things and you're going to make it a little bit thicker, be sure you account for that on the side of your book, because this well really could be a little bit deeper. But I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to put a piece of cardboard on top here and then a string closure. So I'm okay with how it is. So I'm going to decorate this. And then I'm going to glue this in here like that. And then I'm going to put my cardboard on the outside edge. And then I'll come back and show you how that looks. Okay, I've done a background and added my focals. What I used for the card on the other side of my fold out is a coaster from a restaurant, so like a drink coaster. They're really hard cardboard, and it was the perfect size, so that's what I used. And then I put my image over it and added some ephemera, some stamps, some splattered paint, and just did my background the way I wanted to do it. And you can do yours any way you want. And this is my fold out. So this is how it folds out. And because it's at the end of the book, I put the words "the end" and have all my ads and things on there. And I covered the back side of the coaster with a napkin that matches the front side. So there's my pop-up fold out. I absolutely love it. And then when it goes back in, you can't even tell that there's all that in there. Check that out. Woohoo! That is exciting and fun. So now what I want to do is just show you real quick that I want to make a closure that's going to hold this down and in place. And what I'm going to do, and yes, I am going to go through the cover of my book, and if you don't want to do that, you can do something else. But I am going to take brads, and I'm going to take an awl, and I'm going to put a brad, one here and one here, at opposite corners. And before I put one of the brads, probably the one down here, through, I'm going to tie twine around the prongs of the brad. So first through, so I've got a brad up here with a twine tied on it and a brad up here. So what I'm going to do is just take my twine and wrap in a crisscross around my brads. It adds interest to the front. I think that's probably long enough. It adds interest to the front of the design. Look at that. Woohoo! Adds interest, holds it in place, and then when you want to see it, you just undo your twine. And here is your glorious fold out. Woohoo!